Hello and welcome to Uncanny Book Club. I'm Isaac Faderspiel, and joining me as always is my co-host, the astounding Adam Ward.
Yo, I still haven't watched Dark Phoenix. I thought I would provide an update.
Thank you so much for the check-in. But have you watched the trailer for the new Spider-Man movie?
I did. I watched it today.
What'd you think?
I think it looks awesome. I've always been a big fan of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think he does a great job. So I think this whole friendly neighborhood Spider-Man approach that we're getting, and I love Scorpion. He's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. So I'm happy to see that.
They're really doing a good job at hitting home with that whole Spider-Man experiences a lot of tragedy and his life kind of sucks.
Yeah. It is that Peter Parker look. It's unfortunate that Peter can't just be happy. He just has to be miserable. It drives him to become a better hero. It's crazy to think that we are getting a movie that has Spider-Man, Punisher, Bruce Banner, maybe the Hulk, the Hand.
Maybe Jean Grey.
We have MJ. We have Ned. And we get Scorpion, Tombstone, and Boomerang all in one movie.
I didn't even notice Boomerang and Tombstone. I watched it on my phone, and not even like widescreen, I don't think. I just watched like a really, really tiny like stamp-sized video, I guess. I have to go back and do it again.
I think it'll be good. And I guess we're getting like Man Spider when he turns into like a literal spider.
The actual spider. Maybe. I wasn't sure where exactly they were going with that. If they were just, I don't know. It's hard to say. I have to get more up to date, I guess, on my Spider-Man knowledge. But I was thinking about actually reading that maybe from the beginning. Or maybe just from the Bendis's Ultimate Spider-Man run, which I've heard is a very good place to jump in.
I have read all of the original Unlimited Spider-Man up until Miles' introduction.
So a good amount of Spider-Man.
And I've read like several other runs of Spider-Man. I mean, like Dan Slott has written many, many Spider-Man books.
Now that we've talked Spider-Man,
yeah,
time to get into that other super hot Marvel property with issue 161 of the Uncanny X-Men.
Which does not have Jean Grey in it. And
or Spider-Man.
I have kind of wondered when that is going to be rectified.
Eventually. We had a fake Jean Grey briefly when Kitty had the image inducer. Issue 161 gives us a look inside the mind of Charles Xavier as he's trapped in a catatonic state. Somehow, a Brood consciousness has become one with him, and slowly his humanity is being stripped away. The X-Men are gathered around him as they give Scott an update on his condition. Moira says there's always hope, but Scott storms off. Aurora goes to speak with him, and Scott attacks her leadership, pointing out the boondoggle at the Pentagon. Aurora goes to leave, but Scott stops her to apologize. He reflects on how everyone he reaches out to and trusts with his vulnerabilities dies, and asks for her help. Meanwhile, Lilandra is crying over Xavier when we get a peek into his past. He's brought in to help his old friend Daniel Shamron, a psychiatrist at a hospital that's rehabilitating survivors of the Holocaust. Magneto is also there under the alias Magnus. Daniel brings him to Gabrielle Haller's room, who he's diagnosed with a catatonic schizophrenia. Xavier dives into her mind and does his thing, battling inner demons in the astral plane. He gets a glimpse into her past trauma and sees the Nazis as monsters who transformed Gabrielle into solid gold. She wakes up and Danielle is able to begin her recovery. We see a shadowy figure thrilled at her awakening as he gives a little personal Sig Heil to himself like a weirdo. We see a montage of his time spent becoming friends with Magnus and getting close romantically to Gabrielle. Unfortunately, they're attacked by Nazis with advanced weaponry. They steal the girl, but Magneto comes out and does Magneto things and slays the remaining strike force. Charles pulls information from a captured soldier's mind, and he and Magnus go after her. Baron Strucker, one of the most wanted Nazi war criminals, is behind the assault. In the final days of the war, the Fuhrer's personal gold reserves were smuggled out of Germany to someday finance a resurgence of the Nazi Party. Information to get the gold was hidden within Gabrielle, hence the whole gold statue thing, but the process damaged her mentally and they weren't able to retrieve the gold until Xavier awoke her. While distracted by a huge pile of gold and some Hail Hydras, Xavier starts escaping with her while Magnus fights the soldiers. Strucker attacks the three with a special gauntlet called the Satan Claw and knocks out Charles. It's a bad weapon to try on Magneto, though, and Strucker's hand is instead crushed within the gauntlet. Magnus flies Charles up along with all the gold while collapsing the cave on top of the Nazis. Magneto says that Charles is too trusting and too naive, and that even those who love him will turn on him when they find out what he really is. He says mutants will not go meekly to the gas chambers. We will fight, and he flies off with the gold. Gabby wakes up in Charles's arms, and back in the real world, he awakens saying her name. The X-Men are thrilled to see him bounce back. We then see a farewell banquet aboard Lilandra's new space yacht. During her toast, she goes catatonic, much like Xavier was. Deathbird jumps out to take credit, and a stasis bomb blasts all the X-Men. In the final panel, we see her and the Brood standing over them. Bum, bum, bum. And I think immediately we have to jump into that final panel because I have to ask you this, and I've been dying to ask you for, I don't know, a couple weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the Brood wearing a lipstick?
I'm glad you said something because it struck me as a really poor attempt at trying to distinguish gender between them. You know, like
these are the girl Broods. They wear lipstick and they carry purse.
Yeah, they have eyelashes.
It's kind of like the female gremlin in Gremlins 2.
Kind of. That could be the cover for this episode. I'm guessing maybe I don't know, man. Is it blood? Maybe?
I think it's just, I mean, I'm honestly reading it as, you know, they didn't actually put on lipstick, but this is supposed to signify that these are the girl Broods.
Yeah. It's hard not to think that's what it is.
I think, you know, it's possible maybe the colorist just got like confused. Maybe it's a new person. It's hard to say.
Maybe, like, do they roll their lips back, maybe, when they're hissing?
Could be. That one in the back, though, doesn't have.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he's, like, furthest away. Not really, though. The one on the lower right is smaller.
Well,
you know what? I think you have it. I think this is them, like, snarling their lips, maybe. And that one that is the odd man out maybe just isn't, like, his head is tilted forward. But it's a choice.
Now that we're discussing this, I'm going through the next issue specifically because we do see the Brood quite a bit.
I don't believe there's any lipstick.
There is no lipstick. Maybe they're the special guard, you know?
They could be. They're the elite force that travels with Deathbird.
Yeah, distinguished by their red lips.
Well, now that we've got that important bit out of the way, anything special about this issue, you know, besides that final page that you were really into, or what are we looking at here?
I mean, there's a lot to dissect, honestly. There's a lot happening in this issue. I think the first thing I want to just quickly mention is that right off the kind of top of this issue, we get a bit of a confrontation between Storm and Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets a little tense, and we see Scott essentially blaming Storm for the fiasco that happened at the Pentagon with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Which I believe you might say is kind of fair.
I would say it's super fair. However, it does seem like a unavoidable situation because, I mean, like, they were trying to kill the X-Men. So, like, you know, what do you want them to do?
I mean, Scott famously has a plan for every situation. But I do have a hard time believing that he would have constructed a backup plan for just in case Mystique and Rogue happened to be at the Pentagon.
Yeah, it was definitely an extreme circumstance. So I understand the situation, having watched it play out over panels. at the same time, Scott's not wrong in his accusation that maybe things could have been done with less damage happening. And a now very big mess is forming. And I think Scott's also thinking about the bigger picture of optics around mutants and the general feeling in Washington. And if there is a fear that something could happen where they potentially round people up. We see this imagery in this issue playing out in this flashback, Inception-esque situation that takes place with Charles, right? And even having it mentioned by Magneto that that he's naive, that mutants are going to be a target, and when they are a target, there's going to be a fight. And so I think this is, to me, I read it kind of at its end thinking, okay, this is a bit of a tease for what's to come. Like once we kind of settle things with the Brood, kind of get back into the groove of earthly problems, this seems like a logical jumping in point. Where are things now with the government? What are the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants doing? Has Shaw helped the government with the Sentinel program? These actions are clearly still being tugged along here for a reason. And I think we'll get a payoff. I hope, anyways.
I hope so, too. It feels about the right time to dive back into that story. We've had a lot of space and space-related adventure. Pirate time.
Which is pretty daring now, right? Like, we've had a lot of space stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet at the time, people probably thought, wow, what a weird thing to have the X-Men be doing, going into space and having these grand old spaceman adventures.
The X-Men love space. That's where they got the whole Phoenix thing came from.
Well, and it's worked so well. Like, this is all awesome. And it just makes it feel so fresh. And I think the industry today is afraid to make something like this that would be daring to try.
To the status quo.
This is a common conversation I see on Reddit where people actively are talking about how, at least at Marvel, many books only get 5 issues and then they're cut off. So they can't even get their feet going, right?
R.I.P. NYX. I was one of the 4 people that really liked that series. The new one.
And I don't know, it just feels like this story today probably would have been a harder sell. Especially when we see something like Krakoa and then what's come after it, which has not been spectacular.
Kind of just been shuffling around, going through the motions.
And like, I've read some of the Age of Revelation stuff. It's okay, right? Like, it feels very inconsequential, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're removing the story and like, hey, we're going to just have this pocket situation going on. And it provides a lot of freedom, but it also kind of makes the stakes not spectacular. It's just...
Yeah, there's nothing meaningful in the present, really.
You have a logical off-ramp, right? At any point in time, you just say, all right, they beat Revelation, they stopped the madness, and now they'll just go do whatever we want them to do. X-Men in Alaska? Huh? Bet you didn't think of that one.
It is a good group up there, though. It's a very solid team. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
So one of the things I liked was that we got to finally get a look into the Xavier and Magneto past. And I mean, this is actually just their first introduction to each other, not even just, running into each other later as friends. This is, all right, we're starting fresh. They meet each other. They, talk philosophy and probably drink and help out people in the hospital. And I think this was a good, strong starting point, but I hope that this isn't like the end of their friendship before it's like, okay, we are enemies now. I'd like to see more, jump back into the past more, see them, play chess, the other things they like to do together. I assume the chess just because of the movies.
So this is the first time this previous relationship has been alluded to.
So they said something in our last big Magneto issue I think they kind of teased it. They didn't outright say that they were friends, I don't think, but they did have something about Charles thinking that maybe, you know, it was a step in the right direction for Magneto to become the good man that he used to be. So they teased a relationship, or at least a sort of understanding back before he was a villain.
It was fun.
But no, you're right. I think this is the first, like, hey, here's them as friends in the past.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, this is a fun and big moment to have this bit of lore kind of given. And I always try to think about what it would have been like to read this at the time, because it does really change the perspective of this moment. So if you're a dedicated X-Men fan and you've probably a fan of Magneto at this point as a villain, right? To now get this connection put in place, this pre-existing friendship really brings a lot of character and depth to the relationship and opens up a lot of storytelling possibilities going forward, you know, where now their interactions can feel more personal, right? Especially when we know that the League or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants are out there, right? Like, that's an opportunity for Magneto to step back in if he wanted to, or, you know, his kind of like worldview has maybe been questioned a little bit recently, and maybe we'll see a softer Magneto, right? Or who knows? There's a million different ways that you can go, and it's all thanks to this moment.
So the gold thing, I'm not really sure what exactly is going on. I'm not gonna lie. The whole, like, the statue or how they hid the information, for some reason, none of that really clicked in my brain, and I'm not even convinced that I gave an accurate summary of what happened there when summing up the plot, but that was kind of odd. But it does explain how Magneto was able to build such a sick volcano base.
I wrote down that Magneto, in the end of this sequence, is just flexing. He kills a bunch of Nazis. He easily handles Baron von Strucker. He rescues Charles and Gabrielle, then proceeds to fly out of the cave, rescuing them.
Mm-hmm.
Then goes back, grabs all the gold, and just pieces out. And as he's piecing out,
a lot of gold,
he basically tells Charles that his ideals are stupid and that mutants aren't going to be treated like shit. And then
he dabs on him and does a bottle flip. It's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is a good Magneto issue.
Yeah, you can really see how their ideals are just very different from the start, and how they seem to feel a bit of optimism and working together, and they had a shared kind of vision for helping these Holocaust survivors till the Nazis showed up and ruined it all.
Typical.
Yeah.
Damn Hydra.
Damn Hydra. Damn Nazis. So earlier I mentioned this, like I mentioned Inception, and this felt like it could have been the inspiration for Inception, right? We have Charles Xavier. He's in a catatonic state after he had a brain meld with a brood. And in his subconscious, he is reliving his first meeting with Magneto. This happened 20 years earlier. He's being tapped by this former colleague of his to come and help a concentration camp survivor who is also catatonic now. Xavier is essentially her last hope of breaking free. And so he dives into her mind. So we're now like 2 levels deep.
Sure.
Right? And it's at this point that, now that we're in the secondary dream state, that everything gets really weird. He hits a literal wall. He's attacked by these brutish goblin, orc, troll things, demons, whatever they might be. And he also mentions that if he dies in the dreamscape, he dies in real life.
Well, that's just, of course, how that works.
He relives her life through the war. It's really sad. We get a Nazi demon guy, and as you said, she gets turned into gold, and Xavier saves her.
Issue 162 is all about Wolverine. We begin with, I'm Wolverine. I'm a long way from home, and I think I'm dying. He's running in his tattered uniform while in an alien landscape with Brood in pursuit of him. He hallucinates some special time with Mariko on horseback in Japan, but they are attacked by Brood and she's blasted. He and the Brood fight, and Wolverine eventually falls great distance into a giant spiderweb. We zoom out and see that Wolverine was traversing the decayed husk of one of the creature Brood ship things. He thinks back to their capture, and we see some flashbacks of his mind flipping back and forth between seeing a reality of Brood and a ceremony with the Shi'ar. He's eventually brought before the Queen and stung in the chest. Back in the present, local scavengers make a move on him and fail. He stops for a rest, but fears his time has come. We jump back in time again and see him bring concerns to Storm, who blows him off. He stops in Kitty's room next, as she was the only other X-Man to briefly see through the illusion, one being stung. He wants to bring her, but knows he's going to be moving too fast, and it's going to be a dangerous mission. Wolverine witnesses Fang, a member of the Imperial Guard, being transformed into a Brood. He realizes what's going on and exclaims no, but the Brood are after him. Eventually, a Brood comes to kill him, and he blackmails them to fly him up, and Wolverine is delivered into a trap. We see him think they do their best, alongside art of Logan whooping some bug ass. The transformation to Brood begins, but doesn't take hold due to Logan's healing factor. We see Wolverine with scaled skin about to set forth on a rescue mission. He says that he will cure his friends or kill them all, Kitty included, if there is no cure. A short summary, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you can't really capture, and this is one of those issues that you really do have to flip through and read for yourself, ideally.
I agree completely. This issue is awesome. I loved everything about it.
The Logan solo issues tend to be very good so far. It makes a lot of sense why he is the X-Man, basically, in modern times, for at least pop culture and everything.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because Logan, as a character, you could kind of put him in the same bucket as Superman, right? Superman is Superman. He's basically unkillable. And so you can do a lot of different things with that. And Logan is the same. He has that healing factor, which is a key element of this story, with him being infected by the Brood, having a queen larva thing inside of him ready to chest burst its way out. And it's the fact that he has mutant healing that he's able to survive, and comes to this terrible realization that all of his friends are also infected and don't have the mutant ability to fight this off, and that it's just a matter of time. And in his mind, the solution to that is a quick death.
If it has to be done. I mean, he's not going to let them become Brood.
No. I mean, we saw what that process looks like, which...
kind of like a zombie situation.
It's really messed up, man.
You know, when you're bit and you're like, don't let me be one of them. You mentioned earlier about wanting to, always keep in mind, what was it like going through these issues at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Us coming into this, we know enough about the Brood to know what's been happening the entire time. But experiencing this with just zero knowledge must have been just on a whole nother level of awesome. Like, getting to see like the realization of what's going on, him being like, oh, there's, the Imperial Guard is essentially killed and transformed into a Brood. Logan realizes it's happened to all the X-Men. I mean, they've teased it a little bit with what's going on with Professor X, but I think here you really start to get the full picture.
So I will say my knowledge of the Brood is limited, and I'm not really all that familiar with this story at all, beyond, like, I know that the Brood are alien and have been involved in, like, some other space Marvel stories. So this has all been new to me, But I agree. I think having not even an inkling of this, and this would have been out around the time Alien was around, right?
Yeah, this is like the second or third time that they've done something that's been like an homage to Alien. The Christmas episode with the demon was, I mean, very obvious about its, we'll call praise for Alien, but I think it's fair to say that, they were really stuck on the whole xenomorph thing and wanted to make a creature that's still pretty similar.
So I have to ask, there are a few panels where Wolverine looks like he's like, I don't know, like, so he gets all scratched up, right? And then we see the transformation try to take place, and he's able to fight through it. And then when he reappears, he kind of has these scales, kind of is what it looks like. Is that how you're?
Yeah.
Is that your takeaway? Okay.
Yeah, like a bug lizard.
Okay, good. I just wanted to be sure that I'm not crazy.
About the scales?
Yeah, about the scales.
Like, you're wondering, like, are they actually there, or?
If I was interpreting them correctly.
Yeah, because, like, unlike Alien, this isn't a situation where it bursts through the chest. Like, the actual person gets transformed. So I think that's just the start of the process, and then things were kind of halted there.
Because I'm just looking at this panel again, these series of panels with, what is this guy's name? The dog man? Fang?
Fang?
The dog man. He may as well be the wolf man. But they had to eliminate Fang so that way they could save
his
and reuse
too similar.
Yeah, they had to reuse this costume for Sabretooth, so.
And elements for Mystique. The little skulls.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's hard not to see Sabretooth looking at this character.
It's a little bit of Wolverine, a little bit of Sabretooth, a little bit of Mystique.
If you had told me that was Sabretooth, I would have said, yeah, okay. And then
he's the man that inspired all three of them. Fashion icon Fang.
It's the trendsetter. The trendsetter known as Fang, the Imperial
He brought
Guard.
out that sick brown costume, and now Wolverine is wearing a sick brown costume. Yeah. Like, connect the dots. It's all Fang. He did rob him of his clothes at one point.
So this issue to me is a standout amongst the three.
Mm-hmm.
I think they really ran with Logan, had, I think, a lot of fun giving him this incredibly difficult situation that I think few of the other X-Men could handle. The only one I think you could have probably inserted here is maybe Scott. And I think
could be interesting.
I think you could have done something similar and found some sort of MacGuffin to let him stop the transformation, but maybe it just had a one-time use kind of situation. There's ways that they could have made it work. But
the Brood are allergic to ruby quartz. Luckily, Cyclops is never without his ruby quartz sunglasses.
Yep. He was the only one when they went to go impregnate him that first time. Those ruby quartz were the condom that kept it away. Anywho, I want to also just give props to the entire creative team for this issue. It's so colorful, and, I've spoken very highly of how Marvel has imagined this cosmos and how colorful it is and how alive it looks. Like this is an alien world with a lot of alien stuff happening on it. Like, this is not a barren wasteland. We see a ton of different little creatures. We see these what look like little dragons at one time. We obviously have like a brood hierarchy that we kind of see mentioned, where we see these hunters that are out, and some other types later on.
Some science dweebs.
Yep. We see this giant spider web. We see this awesome, huge panel of the corpse of the Brood ship.
It's a cool world. Do you think this is the Brood? Like, is this like a homeworld situation, or are they just kind of stationed here, just a place to hang?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of assumed it was the homeworld, but now that I'm putting some actual thought into it, I don't know.
Because I don't really connect them to like a singular place. I think of them as like, they're like a parasite on the world, and are just in like a constant state of spreading and being eliminated. I think it's just one of those details we'll have to wait and see what we learn.
Yeah, definitely. This was definitely by far my favorite of the three. And I think all three
Agreed.
are strong in different ways. But this was by far my favorite. It was just a lot of fun seeing Logan in these incredibly terrible situations. And I think it also brings a lot of character growth to Logan being, once again in this incredibly difficult emotional situation of knowing a truth that nobody else around you will believe, or, if you did tell them, how would they react? It's a terrible situation to be in. And he has to shoulder all of this while also trying to wake everybody up.
And I think the whole thing is just really, you can really see how well thought out and how much time and effort went into it. Because I don't know if this was necessarily clear from like the summary, but we get a lot of nonlinear storytelling in this issue. We jump back and forth between what's happening in the present, what happened in the past, as he drifts in and out of consciousness or realizes things or hallucinates weird stuff. I think it really helped it to have more of that mysterious feel in a way and made some of those reveals hit a little harder.
So this issue is definitely, I think, more cohesive going into the next issue than the previous one coming into this one, right? Like that end bit could have just have been the start of this issue.
It could have been tacked onto any issue.
Yeah, right. So I think like I'll be very interested to see how this wave kind of continues once we get into the next couple of issues, because the story is, I think we're kind of leaving it off at a bit of a midway point.
Mm-hmm. We'll finish it in the next three.
So it's
my understanding.
I'll be curious to see how this is as a whole, as a single arc. So I think there's a lot of fun and different things that they're doing, and that continues in the next issue with Carol Danvers, a character I have been very critical about.
Your favorite character in the X-Men.
I stand by all of my critiques, and I have more to say about it.
Is that our segue into 163?
Yeah, it is.
Issue 163 starts with us witnessing the Brood conducting scientific experiments on Carol Danvers. They've identified her as neither mutant nor baseline human. They note that they can alter her physical form at will, but that she is psychically resistant. She is experiencing unendurable pain, but remains aware of everything. We then see the silhouette of Logan stalking his prey, one of the Brood conducting Carol's experiments. Wolverine quickly takes it out along with another small group and frees Carol. The two are professionals, so they both pretend Carol is okay, but Wolverine makes note that her scent is no longer human, and we get an image of her eyes replaced with a starscape. Carol says she feels better than she has in ages and is bursting with energy. Meanwhile, we see Lorna, Havoc, and Corsair at the construction site of the future X-Mansion. Corsair confides in Moira that he plans to rescue or avenge his son, but will leave Alex behind, as this will be a killing mission and he doesn't want Alex to learn that habit. We next see Cyclops being pursued by Brood and eventually attacked by Brood dressed as the X-Men. He realizes it's some kind of psionic attack and uses the professor's teachings to break free. He awakens and goes to check on Storm. She's in a trance, and he briefly sees energy coalesce in the form of a Brood around her. She begins to weep, and he wakes her. She says that she's at war with herself without knowing why. The two soon run into Wolverine and Carol and begin to gather the remaining X-Men. But Colossus, Kitty, and Nightcrawler still see the Brood as Shi'ar and think they're in Lilandra's palace. Wolverine wonders if he should inform Cyclops about the eggs the X-Men are hosting, but decides it isn't the time. They come to a fork with one path leading to their escape and the other the Queen. Wolverine wants to go after the Queen, hoping killing her will stop the Brood from transforming the X-Men, but Cyclops says the X-Men don't kill and to just leave her be. Before his choice is made, they're ambushed. Carol dips out to free Lilandra, and Wolverine once again makes a plea for Scott to join him in fighting their way to the Queen. Wolverine decides to just do it himself, and Peter's perception clears up. Carol and Scott call for a retreat, but Wolverine says, "We're as good as dead already thanks to the Queen. At least killing her balances the scales. Do what you like, Psyche. I'm staying." Elsewhere, we see Storm, Nightcrawler, and Kitty on a mission to retrieve Lilandra's ship. Working together, Storm flies them up as high as she can, and then Nightcrawler teleports Kitty to the side of the ship, allowing her to phase through. Her job is to open the door for Kurt before the frigid environment gets him, but she's attacked by a brood. She eventually comes to the airlock and has the choice of pressing the button to cycle it, which she knows would be murder. She can't do it, but the brood flails around in its attack and incidentally presses the button anyway. This is good for Nightcrawler, as he is pretty frozen outside. We see Wolverine in combat with the Queen. Scott calls for him to stop, but Lilandra says Logan is in the right. Logan goes to fatally strike, but they're suddenly teleported away to the ship. Logan is angry to the confusion of his teammates. It says he faces his friends, his pain evident, but they mistake it for berserker rage, when in reality it is grief. He begins to tell them of their fates, but is interrupted when another ship opens fire on them. Next issue, Binary Star.
So what did you think of this issue?
Thought a lot was going on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really, I think it sets us up for in a good way. We don't necessarily see things move forward super significantly. We don't have those talks of like, here's what's happening. There's a little baby brood inside of you, blah, blah, blah. We do get a lot of action. We do get to see the group split up to do a couple different plans. We get to see some interesting moments with Corsair being like, I don't want Alex to kill. At the same time, Scott is on a mission, which should be a killing mission, but he's like, the X-Men don't kill. And I mean, I think it really just sets us up for what comes next. We almost had that out with killing the Queen. We're having a little bit of like a plot twist, little story twist. We're going to jump back into the spaceship, presumably in space. Someone's firing on them. Is it Deathbird? Is it Corsair? Who can say at this point? But I thought it was really packed full of stuff, but it didn't have the same. It didn't have like the same. I don't even know what word, but it didn't have like the same it factor as the previous issue.
So I'm happy to hear you say this because I had a very similar feeling. There is a lot happening in this issue. Yes, there are a lot of building blocks that are kind of being laid out. And we're kind of getting back into this group dynamic and, there's a lot happening. At the same time, it felt like a lot of things were left out, right? Like all the X-Men regrouping, for example, happens off panel. Carol rescuing Lilandra happens off panel.
I'm fine with some of this stuff happening off panel. I mean, there's just a lot going on, and I'd rather this be one issue than two issues. I almost wonder is there too much happening here?
I think it's hard to say right now. How many of these story threads matter, right? So we have the Brood that is the big boss here. They are like the core antagonist with Deathbird and her goons and cronies. She's being manipulated by the Brood to just
they do not
want.
See that as an equal partnership.
No, she is 100% expendable, and I think they're just like, yeah, we'll just turn her into a Brood. Probably. Like, yeah, we'll just use her, and then what is she going to do? Beat us? So we have that storyline kind of, hanging out. We have Logan knowing the truth of everything that's going on and, what fate is before them.
Now we have a weird Carol Danvers thing. She's not human. She's not a mutant.
What is she? She's the first ever. Which is hard to believe, isn't it? Although I think what makes her specifically special is that she's Kree human.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol, I really enjoyed her in this issue, and I'm sticking with my criticism. I think if they had made Carol feel more important earlier when she first came around, if we had brought her on some missions when we had the time to do that sort of thing, I think it just would have brought a whole lot more to this moment.
I'm not going to disagree.
But
it'd be nice to have a little bit more history with her at this point.
I agree. Because this is a big story, and here we have this as like a focal point of that. And Carol's clearly being set up to be a plot device to have her become this pseudo Phoenix-like character in Binary. So, like, I think the way she's used in this story is great. I think this situation she's put in this issue where she's being tested as a lab rat, and we see all these transformations happening, and she's feeling this transformation happening inside of her, and she's been dealing with all this, this new reality that she's fallen into of not being a superhero to now, kind of feeling like, hey, maybe there's something going on here.
It would have been interesting if this issue was framed as more like a Wolverine and Carol buddy up issue and just really focused on those two.
I'd love that.
And then maybe a little bit of that side story with like Storm, Kitty, and Kurt retrieving the ship. Because I thought that was nice and was really like low impact on the amount of space it took up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was fun. Gave them something to do to feel meaningful to the current story while we have Scott lecturing Wolverine about
don't kill.
Yeah. It's like, I get it. Like, it would be out of character probably for Scott to be saying anything other than that.
Yeah, at this point in time, at least.
Yeah. I wonder if knowing the truth would change his opinion. Probably not.
It might depend. Like, so I don't actually know. Like, if they kill the queen, are they good? I don't know the answer to that. So, maybe if they had the answer to that, it could sway things in one direction or not. I mean, like, I feel like it's kind of necessary. Something, the greater good. Gotta save Kitty, at least.
Yeah. My guess is that this is going to lead to the queen not dying. Like, I think it's just to be a point of tension probably for the remainder of the issues between Logan and Scott, just to, kind of paint the characters in very different lights, while us, the reader, knowing that Logan is not coming from a place of rage, but a place of grief. It really kind of, you can see the perspective of Logan, and I think he kind of views the situation as a mercy killing for his friends if he had to do that, and by taking out the queen, presumably preventing countless other lives from being taken. And now that you said a Carol Logan buddy cop, it's kind of what I wish this was, because their dynamic is fun and I want to see it explored more.
It would have been more interesting. A lot of this Cyclops stuff, it could move to the background, but still fine as is.
I think you mentioned to me a couple weeks ago about how we haven't seen Sean Cassidy at all.
Yeah, I think I was pointing out random story threads of like, hey, what happened to Sean having a daughter? And a few other just, oddball things where it's something we're waiting for it to loop back upon, but that was the one that really stuck out to me as humorous.
So this is getting into fantasy booking a little bit, but reading Corsair talk to Moira about not letting Alex come with him, how he has this like moral high ground of not wanting his son to have to dirty his hands and become a killer. Totally fine. Great. I love it. I think it adds some color to Corsair. It would have been great.
He's trying to be a good father.
He's trying. So I thought this would have been the perfect spot to bring in Sean Cassidy.
And his gun.
Moira can just be like, hey, Corsair, I know a guy who can come and help you.
And then we have kind of like a cowboy buddy cop team up between the two.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. I like that. I like that combo a lot.
And maybe through this journey, Banshee gets his powers back.
Maybe he's in the next issue. We don't know.
I kind of miss him, honestly. I really warmed up to Sean over those many issues, especially the Proteus stuff was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he had a laid-back attitude that is maybe missing at times. Everybody else is real high stress.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was this issue or last issue, but I believe between the two, at this point, we have like our first direct confirmation that Wolverine's mutant ability is to heal, on top of the keen senses, fast, strong, etc. But like the healing factor is one of his definitive things. So not a lot to necessarily discuss there, but wanted to give a shout out that our boy is fleshed out a little bit more. He can heal now. So I think that's just another thing that they can play around with.
Has he not mentioned it before?
I don't think so. They've said like, I'm real tough, or, maybe they've said he heals quick, but it's never been like he's never had like a major injury, really. And they've never outright said like, oh, healing factor is his thing. I'm coming across a note that I missed from earlier. It's, this is a little random, but it's so interesting that Scott is so hardline on the X-Men don't kill. When issues ago, Wolverine has already killed multiple Brood on Earth in New York. Like that line's been crossed, but sure, the X-Men don't kill.
Well, not to mention the countless other ones that he's killed, like in that previous issue, and all the ones that he killed in this one.
Maybe he should confess and be like, Slim, it's Bub, I've killed like 400 of these bugs while I was waiting for you to wake up.
Sorry, Boy Scout.
And then he throws an empty beer can at him.
Yeah.
So overall, between the three issues, we kind of, the first one is sort of involved in the story. Really just like the last couple of pages sets up like, all right, Professor X is up, go back into space. Everybody's kidnapped and captured. So it's part of the story, not really completely. It had a lot of highlights to it, getting to see Xavier and Magneto build some of that history, but it didn't necessarily like hit as hard as the other ones, I guess, for me. Second one, very, very good. Great storytelling. A lot of really good Logan time. Third one, maybe trying to juggle slightly too much, but still a good continuation of the story, even if it wasn't necessarily a spot where we got to see much for a conclusion to certain things. I think like an 8.5 feels right, just as a whole, looking at the three issues.
So I was at an 8. So I think your gut is right. So overall,
second issue really does a lot of heavy lifting.
It really does. I don't really have any complaints about the second issue. It's amazing, and I think breathes a lot of life into these issues and just really kind of expands upon what we've seen the Marvel cosmos kind of look like, and continues to kind of challenge, I think, how aliens can be perceived sometimes, which is, I think, very humanoid-like, right? Like bipedal, they talk, they do their thing, and everything about the Brood and this planet and the aliens that live here are not that. They really buck the trend of appearance and how an alien can act, and I think it really is just a great piece all around. The first issue that we looked at, I think when you look at it on its own, I think is a lot stronger than looking at it as part of this larger arc. Because really,
it is a good issue still. It has a lot going for it. It just is out of place, with what we're reading, but at the same time also belonging.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it was probably the right place for something like that. I think anything like if this had been like the third issue instead of the first, it would have felt very out of place. But I think given that we kind of have this situation unfolding with Charles being catatonic and trying to navigate coming back to the real world, like we were always going to have to cross that bridge at some point. So I liked it. I think on its own, this is like an 8 in and of itself, given, it's a bit silly. It really kind of plays up levels of how people kind of interpret grief and trauma and how that can stay with you and how it haunts you. And this blooming friendship between Charles and Magneto, which becomes an integral part of them. It connects them from that moment on. So a huge issue. It just feels like it didn't matter too much to the other two. And I think that's okay. And yeah, I think, the third issue, as you've said, I think struggled by being jam-packed. And I know, for me, I wish I would have seen a little bit of a few other things that happened off panel. But I also understand why they were cut, because there's a lot happening here to kind of, I think, build a baseline that will carry the story over the next 3 issues. And, I think when you kind of look at this as a Wolverine story, right, as a core main character of this and the narrative kind of being built around him, I think there's a good payoff that's coming on where Logan might have to make a terrible, hard decision, or maybe he won't, and they'll figure out something else. And maybe that is killing the Queen. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I as I said, I'd 8 out of 10 for the 3 of them.
That does it for this episode of Uncanny Book Club. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next episode where we'll discuss issues 164 to 166.
Hey, and you can follow me on Blue Sky now at Adam Ward Says. So I post about the comics as I read them. So come follow. It's a lot of fun. Now, goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Uncanny Book Club. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share with a friend.